Athlete to pastor, Bobby Ryals' journey is an inspiration to all. We'll talk with Bobby right after this on the Integrity Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello and welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, powered by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree removal, or stump removal needs, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has you covered. They can haul rock and sand. They can build ponds or repair pond dams. They do a lot of driveway work and can even now do horizontal grinding of large wood debris piles. Give Keith a call at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is proud to be the premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend of mine, Bobby Ryals. Bobby was a standout baseball player at Crisp County. He also played for my very first Americus Travelers team back in 1995, and his life story has been an inspiration to many. Bobby, thanks for joining me today.
Coach, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's a blessing to be here, brother.
Hey, Bobby, I want to start today by just kind of letting people know who you were as a kid, kind of the Bobby Ryals that grew up and how you got involved in sports, some of the things like that. Give us a little background.
Yeah, so was born in Macon, Georgia, lived here for, I don't live there now, but lived in Macon till probably about 6, 7, maybe 8 years old. My parents got a divorce, and my grandparents were down in Cordele. So we moved down to Cordele and had my cousin there. And then the neighborhood that they were in, there were tons of kids everywhere. So I had my cousins and all these neighborhood kids. And there was a big field across from my grandparents' house, and we would get together. We would play football during the winter and baseball during the summer, right? The spring and summer. And these kids were, a lot of them were older than me. And so, I was always competitive, just had that inside of me. And so get out there, play baseball with these guys, man, and just really fell in love with the game. And just kept pursuing it. I had an uncle that would get out there and hit me fly balls that were 10 miles high, it seemed. And just really learned to track the ball and catch the ball and all that stuff, man. And just like I said, fell in love with the game. And it's still a part of my life now. So.
And Bobby, you played at Crisp County, and then I met you, I guess, when you came to Georgia Southwestern. And you were able to play on our very first Americus Travelers team. At that point, we were an 18 and under program. And, man, what a great summer that was.
It was, man, I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun. Talking about, Crisp County, like defensively, I was fast. I could run the ball down. I could throw it. But, man, I really had a lot of work to do as far as hitting, and it was all a confidence thing. And it just, whenever I came and I was a part of the Americus Travelers program, that confidence just was there, right? Like, just under you as a coach, and just that confidence. And that's something I've carried out through the rest of my life. But it just really finally that summer, man, it started clicking, and just seemed like almost everything went right, on the field. It was a pretty phenomenal season, probably one of the best I'd ever had, and just really loved it, man. It was a lot of fun playing on that Travelers team with those guys, and a lot of really good athletes on that team, a lot of really good dudes on that team.
That's right. And Bobby, and shortly after that, became the life-altering event for Bobby Ryals. Tell us a little about that event and how it changed the direction of your life.
Yeah, man. So in December 1st of 1995, I got in a car accident. And in that car accident, I was paralyzed. and became a paraplegic. So it's like overnight, right? Life just kind of changed. Is that day I'm on the baseball field at practice, running around, and then by the sun up the next day, I'm laid in a bed in a hospital room, and really scared. But throughout that trial, there's been a lot of lessons learned, a lot of priorities shifted. I'd always kind of identified myself as an athlete, and that was pretty much who I was, right? And so it was an opportunity to rebrand myself, and it was an opportunity for me to really start at 19 years old, having to go in and figure out life all over again, right? Like having to learn to do everything differently. I often tell people it was the worst thing and the best thing all at the same time that could have ever happened to me. And God has really used it and given me a platform that I really feel like I've had an opportunity to impact far more people in this wheelchair than I ever would have up walking around.
Yeah. So, Bobby, at some point, you had to decide how you were going to live life. What would you do to earn a living? How do you interact with people socially? Give our audience a little insight into the mindset at that point in your life.
Well, man, it really started when I was at Shepherd Spinal Center in Atlanta and doing rehab there. I remember like having a really, really rough day. Like it took me like 2 hours to get dressed, just having to learn. I'm a pretty tall guy, and like being paralyzed from the waist down, it's like this dead weight, right? And you're just balancing essentially on your trunk. And I remember just keep falling over, just putting my shoes on, just being kind of upset about that. And I remember hearing about all these miracles that take place at Shepherd. And in my mind, the miracle was that I'd be walking again. I'd be back on the baseball field, that kind of thing. And God just really had to change my heart. I remember going into the gym that they have there at Shepherd. And there was a guy down there playing wheelchair basketball and was cut off at the elbows and at the knees. And he was out there pushing that chair and playing basketball. And the kind of a light just went off in my head. And it was like, life might not be exactly the way I had planned. I'd have never planned this for myself, right? Yeah. But it was just a moment where it was just kind of a big aha moment, right? And saying, you're so focused on what you want God's plan to look like and what you think a miracle is. The fact that you're here breathing and you're able to push this chair on your own with your own hands, like that's a miracle.
Yeah.
Right. And so it became at that point just focusing not on what I'd lost, but on what I still had. And then that took me, throughout. I had to figure out, hey, so what's the plan now? Right. And I got into, going and speaking at schools and speaking to teams, athletes, stuff like that. And got into the insurance business. A friend of mine worked, for an insurance company. I was like, I could probably do that. And just really fell in love with the whole sales role. And I'm still doing that today, 20 years later.
Yeah.
And so it's just really, it's a blessing. I enjoy it. I enjoy my job. I still go, and when time affords me to speak to people, got a event coming up, and I think it's in Ashburn, the 21st. I'll be speaking at a youth conference down there at a Baptist church down there. And so he's just still doing it, man, until the Lord says, hey, brother, it's time to come home. I really want to hope that I live a life that can be inspiring for people and make a difference in people's lives. So
we're talking with Bobby Ryals. Bobby is a former Americus Traveler. And Bobby, today we have several sponsors on our program. One of those is Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance. I know you know Marty really well. Marty and his staff are located at 925 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Americus. You can drop by anytime and talk to Marty or any of his staff, and they'll discuss your insurance needs. Marty can even do the discount double check to make sure that you're getting all of the savings that you're qualified to receive. And like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Bobby, I know that you do a good bit of speaking. You just mentioned that. You talk to a lot of school-age kids. I even attended one of those a few years ago at Sly County High School where you talked about making good choices. This has allowed you, I'm sure, to develop some good public speaking skills, not to mention impacting the future of the generations of kids that listen to you. But tell us about some of the goals when you go to speak to a group of kids like that. Tell us what your goal is in that speaking engagement.
Man, like, first of all, my biggest goal is just to glorify God in whatever I say, right? And let him use me however he sees fit. Ultimately, the end goal is to be able to make an impact, right? So, you know, my family, and you know what kind of some of the stuff they went through in my situation, right? And so my goal is to hopefully keep a family from going through that, right? And also to maybe get through to a child who is on the wrong path. Maybe it's an opportunity to turn around, or even more, maybe it's somebody who's made a mistake, right? Yeah. And they realize that they don't have to be defined by that mistake. That just like Romans 8:28 says, that God can step in there and he can take, any bad situation, he can turn around for his good, for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. And we're all called according to his purpose. We forget it's not our purpose, but his.
Yeah.
But, hopefully at some point, some kid who's like, you know what, man, or maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's someone, whoever is in there in my circle of influence during that time, I have their attention. Hopefully I can say something, do something that can really motivate them to change or encourage them when they've made that mistake and be able to move forward, right? And that's my goal when I go speak. That's pretty much it, brother.
Well, Bobby, I want you to look back at the time that you started as an athlete to right now. And I'm not necessarily talking about family. We'll talk family later on in the broadcast here, but think about people that poured into you, that had an impact on you, whether that was athletically or just in life. Tell us about some of those folks.
Man, well, I mean, I'll start with you. I talked earlier. Yeah, I honestly, and I really wanted to be. They did a celebration for you.
Yeah,
last year, this time, somewhere around
it
there.
was.
And I had something come up, and I could not make it. And man, I hated not being there because I wanted to so badly. But like, you were a huge impact to me as an athlete in the fact that you helped me to have confidence in myself, right? And like I said, that confidence has not left me. And when you have that confidence, you're willing to take risk and to move forward. Like, nothing good ever happens in a comfort zone. And right. When you've got that confidence and you've got the love of those around you, you were always so supportive of us. And when you have that around you and you're willing to step out on a limb, right? Because if you fall, you're falling into the arms of somebody who loves you, right? And even as in my role as in my job, I'm a sales supervisor. And like I do the same thing. I encourage my people to take risk, right? Hey, let's try something you haven't tried before. And if you fail, I'm right here. We'll regroup. We'll figure it out, right? And when you've got somebody in your life like that, it just puts you in a situation where you can take risks, because you know that no matter what happens, you fall into a safe space, right? Yeah. And somebody who's going to pat you on the back, brush you off, and say, hey, let's go after it again. Let's try a different plan. And so just as a young guy, man, like I really felt that, as being a part of the Travelers program, and just being surrounded by friends that, whenever I had my accidents, friends who didn't stop or didn't change how they treated me.
Yeah.
Right. Just got off the phone earlier today with a buddy of mine, Alan Lee.
Yeah.
and he used to work, would work in the concession stands and stuff like that down there.
That's right.
And just got off the phone with him, and he was one of those friends who never treated me any differently than any other time, and just like kind of put me in a position where he's like, hey, I'm not going to allow you to feel sorry for yourself, Yeah. And so, outside of family, man, you and Alan, and, I'm so scared I'm going to leave somebody out that was so important in my life. But it's, I've been blessed to have these amazing, amazing people in my corner. And it's like, when you got those kind of people in your corner, you can come out swinging.
Yeah.
You can come out.
I tell you something else I want to hear about, and I don't know much about this going in, so this is not scripted or anything, but
okay.
I've noticed on Facebook where you're involved with what I think is the Warner Robins Sharks, the wheelchair basketball, Houston County Sharks.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh man, so they're actually they play 3 different sports. They play wheelchair basketball, handball, and wheelchair football, which is. I got the opportunity to play in a game not long ago, and I was super excited about it because, the athlete in me is like, I still got it.
Yeah.
The 47-year-old in me was like, maybe you don't still got it. I did score a touchdown though. But man, it's a program that somebody had invited me to an event that they had, and I went and I watched, and then I got invited to speak at a banquet that they had. And this team is ridiculous. They've got like 34, I think it is 34 state championships across 3 sports.
Wow.
Phenomenal program. But they invited me to get offered to come and speak. And so I did. And there was a lady named Christy Jones. She's actually from the Vienna area. But I just started developing a friendship with her. And I had questions. I'm like, how are you guys funded? Do you have a booster club? How are you? Because I know, man, wheelchairs, like especially sports wheelchairs, are like $4,000, like $4,200, right? And there are grants that can be had, things like this, but there's a lot of expenses that are kind of left for them to manage, And so really got involved with that. And I was like, I want to help you guys however I can. So we created a website. I do a wiffle ball tournament, which we've got coming up. And all the money that we make, last year was our first one up here in Perry. And the goal was to raise 10,000. We raised 12.
Wow.
And so we're able to pass that money off to them and allow them to use that how they see fit to really help that program. And man, there's a bunch of awesome kids in that program. And so I'm just, just the athlete in me just always wants to just be around sports, right? No matter what the capacity, right? And so any way I can get in and just plug in wherever they need somebody or whatever, even if it's just to be there and to encourage them, I do. But it's a phenomenal program, and they're doing great things. And Christy just retired, so they've got someone else in charge, but she's taken on a different level with the state. And so they're looking to put wheelchair programs in different school systems. And so it's a phenomenal thing. As an athlete, one of the things was, I'm always going to be an athlete at heart. I've got that competitive spirit. How do you allow that? How do you give that to someone who has a disability? Right. Because that mindset is still there. And there's just so many valuable things that can be learned in a team environment. Right. And there's confidence that gets built, and that rolls over into how well they do in the classroom, how well they do in life. Can they be a good teammate? If they can be a good teammate, hey, they can probably be a good dad.
Yeah.
They can be a good contributing member of society. And just because, you may have a disability does not disqualify you from the rest of life, And I've really just tried to be an example of that to them so that they know, hey, beyond high school, I can still contribute.
Yeah.
So And that's
Bobby,
how I got involved and why I got
here,
involved. It's a great program.
listen, every week I try to give my guests a chance to talk about their family. And I'm looking forward to hearing this because, man, I love your mom, your stepdad, Charles, your brother, Junior, all those folks, man. They were so supportive of me when I first started this Travelers program. I know how supportive they've been of you. Tell our audience about your family, not just your parents and your brother, but your now wife and child. Give us an idea of those folks that really lift you up.
Oh, man. So I'm going to tell you, nobody's ever going to love you like your mama.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell you, when it comes to mamas, I got blessed.
You did.
You know, I really did. You know, talked earlier about mom and my biological dad divorcing. And then it was pretty much my mom, me and my brother until my stepdad came along. And, you know, around that time I was probably, I think 12, somewhere around there. But man, mama taught me a lot of lessons about struggle and how to persevere, right? And how to be thankful for what you do have, right? That thing I said about not focusing on what I lost, but being appreciative of what I still have. Like that came from my mama.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, grew up, you know, honestly, we never had a lot. We had love and we had work ethic.
Yeah.
And, you know, that, you know, money just, it was always tight for my family. And so, you know, my nanny and my mama would get out there and sell cakes, bake cakes and sell cakes to be able to pay for me to play travel ball. Right.
Yeah. I remember that.
And, you know, and if there were ever any extra, it was always used to help somebody else too.
Yeah.
And so just seeing that in my own life, right. Just really, I mean, I am who I am because of the family that I have. Like, you know, I see so many, I look back and I see some of my friends who if you're looking through the filter of life and material things, a lot of them had more than we did. Right.
Yeah.
But when I look through the filter of love and like who I have become because of them, man, I didn't miss out on anything.
You got that right.
You know, I did not. I had amazing people. My nanny was an amazing woman. My mom's an amazing woman. My stepdad man, he has stepped in and he treats my mom. He's taught me how to be a dad, how to be a husband, right? The way he loves my mom and respects my mom and provides for my mom is, dude, like, you know, I had a lesson from my biological father in what not to be.
Yeah.
And I had a lesson from my I call him my dad, in exactly what to be, to always be there for family, to step in. And when you can, do what you can with what you have and lead in a way that commands respect and doesn't bring dishonor to who you are, to who your family is. And so been blessed with that. My brother, man, always been in my corner.
Yeah.
Always been in my corner, patting me on the back, you know, from playing ball to everything I've got going on. I had my ordination last weekend. He was there. Just always felt like, you know, he's always loved and supported me and like he's always been proud of me. Yeah.
Tell me about your wife, Bobby. I have met her once, but tell me about her.
She's beautiful. She's, you know, and not just physically. She is absolutely beautiful physically. She challenges me. She is always, she's supportive. She wants me to be the very best I can. She encourages me to be, you know, more faithful. Like she has faith. Like, you know, God knew what he was doing when he created woman. Yeah. I'm going to say that because they can balance things that we just can't.
Yeah.
Right. Things that overwhelm us, like women just between work, children, family life, spiritual life, like they just are able to do it. And there's so many things in my life that I get to do because I have that helpmate who is strong, and who is encouraging and who goes to battle for me in prayer, right? So I'm so blessed when it comes to my wife and my daughter. You know, I don't know any person, man or woman, that I feel like knows more about what the word of God says than my wife. And it encourages me to dig deeper, right?
Yeah.
She's smarter than me. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
she is smarter than me, prettier than me, all that, you know. But she is an absolute blessing. And
Well, I tell you what, I know you can't use your legs, Bobby, but you definitely outkicked your coverage.
Amen, brother.
With her.
Yes.
Bobby, one of the neat things about our program every week is WMNZ AM 1050 in Montezuma takes the audio off of our program and they play it on their radio station every week so that the people in the Macon County area can at least hear the content. And so we want to thank Lance Teal and the staff at WMNZ for doing that. Bobby, you recently were ordained as a pastor, and I know you're serving currently as the interim pastor at 3rd Street Baptist over in Cordele. Tell me a little bit about that journey.
Wow, it's a journey that's been going for 30 years, interestingly enough. So I attended 3rd Street Baptist as a teenager, got saved there when I was 14 years old, and committed myself to the Lord at that time, man. And then had some church hurt. You know, at 17, I was called to preach, and church hurt kind of made me run. I was like, God, I love you, but I don't really like your people.
Yeah.
Right. And so about that time went off to college and just didn't really make the time for the Lord that I should have been making. Right. And started putting priority in things other than God. And so went about that, and God has a way of just kind of whipping us back into shape and picking us up and putting us back on that path when we fail. And so just, you've really been serving in ministry in one form or another, probably for the past 10, 15 years. 3rd Street was without a pastor for a year and a half, somewhere around there. And I'd gone in and I'd stepped in and speak. And interestingly enough, 3rd Street is where I experienced church hurt, and was just really kind of in a place where I was like, Lord, I knew that they were looking for a pastor, but I didn't think I was even on the radar, praying that I wasn't on the radar, just because I just, as a 17-year-old, was not spiritually mature. Right. And did not realize that the people inside the walls of that church have the same ability to hurt you as those in the outside world.
Yeah.
It should be different, but it's not. That's the reality of it. And I didn't really know how to handle that spiritually. So I ran, as far as fast and far as I could. And I was pretty fast, so I got pretty far.
Yeah.
And so, but just recently, man, they had offered me the position. I think it was towards the end of last year. Asked me if I would take that interim pastor role, and I refused it. And I really felt like I prayed in that refusal, right? And so it was like, Lord, if this is not for me, don't ever let it come back on my plate. And months passed, probably 6 months or so passed. And I was sitting there, I had my phone in my hand, I was chatting with a couple guys. I've got a couple guys, buddy of mine, Blake, buddy of mine, Landon. We talk daily, right? And 2 guys that I respect, 2 guys that are good, solid Christian dudes. And so we talk every day. And then I get a text message come across my phone, and it's like, it was the buddy of mine from 3rd Street. He's like, man, would you reconsider? And I'd already prayed, Lord, don't let this come back on my plate if it's not for me. And so I hit him with the Sunday school response. Let me pray about it, which I'd already prayed about it. It was just at that point, it was just a matter of convincing my wife, and her response was, "Have you prayed about it?" Right? I expected a different response because she grew up in Vienna. She went to school at Crisp County, but she didn't have the passion for Crisp County that I did.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it wasn't the response I expected. But ultimately, we both knew that no matter how she felt about it, if it was God's calling, we were going.
Yeah.
And so she said, "Did you pray about it?" And I said, "I've been praying about it, since the first time they asked." And she said, "Well, I'll trust you in that." And so we started there the first Sunday in July.
Man, that's awesome, Bobby. Hey, it's been great to have you today. I want to thank you for what you do. And Bobby, you do it with integrity. And I hope that you know the impact that you're making on the ones that tell you that. What I really hope you know is the impact you're making on folks that never will tell you. But you are, and you're what this show's about, doing things athletically and in your life with integrity. And man, it was awesome to coach you. It's awesome to continue to be your friend. And just want to thank you for being a part of our program today.
Thanks for having me, brother. I'll always look up to you, man. You'll always be coach to me, brother.
Thank you. And we want to thank you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast, powered by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal, a part of your weekly routine. If you're watching this on Facebook, let me encourage you to like and share this video. What we're really trying to do is build our YouTube presence. Bobby, you can help me with this. Tell all your buddies, log on to YouTube, type in Integrity Sports Podcast in the search bar, and then hit the subscribe button up at the top. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers over the course of about a year, man, we're really going to do a lot more with this podcast. But it's been a lot of fun. It's going to be available on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and about 8 other podcast and social media platforms. For my good friend, Bobby Ryals, I'm your host, Tim Estes. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody.